Today, Frankie and I will be discussing the 2014 film Whiplash, written and directed by Damien Chazelle, which tells the story of an ambitious jazz drummer, Andrew Neiman, who's pushed to his limit by his abusive and ruthlessly strict band leader, Terrence Fletcher, at the fictional school Schaefer Conservatory. Hope you guys enjoy.
And so, damn.
So listen, it's that time of the day again.
Woo.
We're at the final segment of the show.
Yep.
It's got to end eventually, I know, folks.
I'm having a good ass time today, man. So let's do it.
So we're here at the AMC section. We're talking about movies for this week.
Last week, what did we cover?
Last week we covered albums. We talked about Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles.
What an amazing album. But we must move on. And now that we're on movies, what movie are we talking about today?
Boy, we talking about Whiplash.
Oh, man. Which came out in 2014?
2014, written and directed by Damien Chazelle, and who is someone that I admire a lot, actually.
Okay.
This guy wrote this movie and made this movie during his 20s.
Wow.
So pretty early in his life, and he was able to make this movie.
It's in his 20s?
Yeah.
What was the name again?
Damien Chazelle.
Jesus Christ.
It's not his first movie. His first movie was Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench, which came out in 2009. This came out in 2014. What's interesting about this is that he didn't have the funding to make this movie. So in 2013, he made a short film of this movie, put it into the Sundance Film Festival, and through that, he was able to get the funding to actually make this into a full-on movie.
Jesus Christ. Which, real quick, I think with Quentin Tarantino, when he wanted to make Reservoir Dogs, he sold a short story that he wrote, and he made enough money to film Reservoir Dogs in the future. So I just like that, and I'm gonna try that shit in the future too. I want to write one of my scripts into a book so I can sell and eventually make a movie. But I think it's a very nice and maybe informative solution to future filmmakers to do that in order to make their films. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, Damien Chazelle, if any of you guys catch that name immediately, you'll know that Damien Chazelle is also the writer and director behind La La Land, as well as First Man. And La La Land came out in 2016. First Man came out in 2018.
Hey, power editing. Damn, I fucked it up. The whole point of that was so you guys wouldn't hear the noise that happened. So sorry. My drunk ass. Anyway. Continue.
In 2018.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you ever seen La La Land. It's a great, fantastic movie, I think.
Actually, so when both those movies came out, there was a controversy, right? With the whole announcement of awards. They announced it for Moonlight and then they gave it to La La Land, right?
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that, I went to the theaters, I'm just like a bar. I go to a theater by myself a lot, Okay. I used to before. I would get dumb high, smoke a joint, walk into a theater, and be that guy, which is a great person to be, because that's the best way to enjoy a film. Intoxicated is what I'm trying to say. Everybody can enjoy a film in their own way, but I think when you're a little under the influence, you just take in all those little moments a little better, right? And I was like, which one should I see? Moonlight and La La Land, right? And I was like, let me see Moonlight. Fuck it. No specific reason. I was just like, let me just see Moonlight. And I was like, holy shit, this movie's deep, bro. Have you seen Moonlight before?
I have seen Moonlight.
It's a deep ass movie. And as you can, I'm pretty sure you agree, it's a deep ass movie.
Yeah.
And La La Land, I've never seen it, but I really wanted to see La La Land because I thought the way they depicted the shooting itself of it, the imagery and stuff, it was so throwback. It was so beautiful. It looked really like Disney-like, but human beings, And I was very that's awesome. But I just said, fuck it, let me see Moonlight. And I was like, whoa. But they were both, I didn't see La La Land yet. I've seen snippets of how it's been filmed, and it's awesome. But Moonlight was a very strong movie too. And I think, despite that whole controversy, which I think was blown out of proportion just a little bit, I think they're terrible, not terrible, great films.
Yeah, what's also interesting about those movies too is that the music behind Whiplash was done by Justin Hurwitz. Okay. Justin Hurwitz also did the music to La La Land, First Man, and Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench.
Okay.
So he and Damien Chazelle have been working together pretty much for their whole careers.
Wow.
What's interesting about that too is that, especially for La La Land, Justin Hurwitz won a lot of awards. He won a lot of awards for Best Original Soundtrack, Best Song, things like that. And so Damien Chazelle knows who he's working with. He knows what he's doing. So just to throw you some facts out there, this movie had a budget of $3.3 million. The box office, only $49 million. Didn't make a lot of money.
Only 49 million.
That's still less than the budget. That's less than the budget of other movies.
True. But in terms of the budget for the movie, it's a lot of money, right?
I mean, 3.3 mil is a pretty low budget.
Yeah. I'm saying like profit wise, in terms of the original budget, that's a lot of money to make off of it, or not really?
Not really. I found out that it is one of the lowest grossing movies to be nominated for Best Picture.
Oh, okay. My old wow just went to okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, good to hear.
So it didn't make a lot of money in the box office, but that didn't stop it from winning 5 Oscars in total.
Wow.
On top of that, J.K. Simmons has won 47 awards for his role as Fletcher in the film.
What a fantastic.
And one of them including Best Supporting Actor.
What other roles has he played? Spider-Man?
I mean, he was J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man.
My dumbass kept thinking he was the Green Goblin, but that's Willem Dafoe. And then I'm like, no, I understand that he is the reporter, right? The Spider-Man, right? Like, okay, cool, my bad. I sounded more like Willem Dafoe on that, but I meant the reporter. I'm just sorry, because when I saw his face all bald and shit, I was like, what? Which one are you?
Which one are you?
which I'm gonna say this, bro. If he wasn't white, that sentence could sound terrible. I'll just let that be. And I didn't pick my nose, bitches. I scratched it. So, that's some Seinfeld shit, if you know what I'm talking about. It's an episode where he scratches his nose like this, right?
Okay.
And some girl pulls up on the side, right? And she's like, he's picking his nose. Well, she pulls up on this side, right? Well, and he's like, he's picking his nose, but he's really just scratching his nose. I'm going off topic. Anyway. So what was his name again? The actor that plays what's his name? Terrence Fletcher?
Terrence Fletcher is the character. He's played by J.K. Simmons.
Okay.
And alongside J.K. Simmons is the main character lead, played by Miles Teller.
Gotcha.
And the love interest is played by Melissa Benoist, I believe is how her last name is pronounced. I could be wrong. Fun fact about Melissa Benoist is that she's also Supergirl in the CW shows.
Oh, that actually makes a lot of sense, because now I'm thinking about both of them. I didn't watch Superwoman or Supergirl.
Supergirl.
But I can see how they look very similar.
Yeah.
Like trailers and shit. Nice.
And I just wanted to point out that this movie, a couple of other, like I pulled up some trivia. So this is just pulling out trivia.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is the segment of the show. It's Trivia with Javi.
Trivia. Tribute to Whiplash. I couldn't think of another T word. Okay.
So something I found out was that all of Andrew's drumming was performed by Miles Teller himself to pre-recorded tracks.
That's the first thing I Googled I actually Googled 2 things, but I'll tell you the first thing I Googled later. But the second thing I found out was that Miles Teller, right? That's his name? He was the actual drummer in the movie. First of all, to sum it up, this is the movie where you see, what's his name in Spider-Man?
Andrew. Or in Spider-Man?
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons.
The guy in Spider-Man who basically is smoking a cigar. Spider-Man! You know, like that guy. He's basically in the movie where he's wearing a really tight black t-shirt and he's conducting the band. I feel like that's how most people know the movie that don't really pay attention to the film, because that's how I know the movie. You know, so we'll throw, especially because we have video for this section, we're going to put in what the movie looks like. But that's where I've heard this movie from a lot. And like I've only seen snippets of him in the black shirt being really close to the band. So when you recommended the movie, I was like, I only know so much about the film, but I know only that. So I just want to throw it out there for people that may be listening and don't know what it is, because it's such a recent film. 2014 is pretty recent. We kind of covered a lot of movies from like back then, you know, I'm trying to say lately. Yeah. So I think that's kind of cool that when you brought it up, I was like, am I gonna like this shit because it's 2014? I'm a hater like that. Like anything recent, I'm very critical of. But boy, this shit was crazy. Anyway, go on, please.
Yeah. So about 40% of Teller's drumming was used in the official soundtrack of the movie, which is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. He also did a lot of training for the movie in terms of doing a lot, because Miles Teller has had a passion for drumming since he was 15.
Amazing. Just like Paul McCartney at 15. Yeah. He was writing songs at 15 and stuff. My bad. I don't mean to, but it's just kind of that significant number you pointed out. Paul McCartney was writing songs at that age.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no. So Miles Teller, he was always playing the drums since 15. He loved it. And so, but for the movie, he practiced a lot more. He would practice, I think it was about 4 hours a day for 3 weeks straight. And he really put his all into this movie. And I could be completely wrong on this, but I think the footage that when he looks back in the movie of him as a little kid playing the drums, I think that's footage of Miles Teller himself as a kid playing the drums.
Really?
I could be completely wrong on that.
It's still pretty good footage of any little kid playing like drums, you know.
We'll throw that in the supplementary if anything,
awesome.
but that was just another fun fact. Another trivia fact I got for you is that J.K. Simmons says the only line he improvised as Fletcher is when he calls Andrew a self-righteous little prick.
I love that. I love the scenes where he yelled at him, and I literally laughed out loud like undouchey, but it just, I'll get into it in a bit, but it just, I love shit like that. I love shit like that.
I thought that was a pretty good fact to bring up, because I think that highlights how tight the script is.
Yeah.
Because for the fact that was the only line improvised, all those remarks that Fletcher makes and all those like jabs and cuts and Fletcher makes was all written.
Yeah.
And that I think that's a true testament to Damien Chazelle to write this script and to have all those things included.
For sure.
Another pretty interesting fact I have is that Andrew appears in every scene of the movie.
Wow.
He is never off screen. He is always there.
Andrew is the drummer.
Yes.
Wow. I didn't know that. And can I give a quick sum up, just because I felt like you're giving me such crazy facts right now, and can we sum up the story for the viewers?
Of course.
Yeah, you sum it up, because I feel like you're doing best. But give a quick sum up about what this movie is overall about.
Yeah, so sorry to dive so deep into it.
No, bro. Trust me, for me, that having just watched it literally today, and the reason I do that is because it's so fresh, and bro, I enjoyed this movie, and you're gonna see why. But give the viewers a synopsis, if you will.
The synopsis of the movie is that Miles Teller, Andrew Naiman, I believe is his last name. He's playing at
Safer.
I believe
Safer.
All right, I think it was Sheffield. But he's playing at one of the top music schools in the country. Mm-hmm. And he gets recruited into Terrence Fletcher's top class. And Terrence Fletcher is one of the best regarded conductors out there.
Yes.
And so Andrew Naiman, as a drummer, is trying to prove himself to be one of the bests to Terrence Fletcher. And that's the whole movie. It's just him just trying to get the not the appreciation, the acceptance.
I would also say appreciation, because I think they coincide as well. And essentially, like, he's just trying to be like, I am good enough to be the best drummer here. And he wants to be the best drummer. He wants to be a legend.
Yeah.
He wants to be a legend in the movie. And it's basically like, I want to be the very next best. And I have to basically put up with this boot camp of a conductor, aka like music leader, if you want to put it in simpler terms. And he's a real like dictator of music.
Yeah.
And it's very intense.
The last fact I have for you is that this movie won 5 Oscars when it came out.
Wow.
It won Best Sound Mixing, Best Supporting Actor for J.K. Simmons, Best Film Editing, Best Picture, and Best Adapted Screenplay. And it won the Best Adapted Screenplay since it was a short film before it ever became a movie.
Okay.
But those are the facts I got for you. So now we can dive deep into the meat of the actual movie.
Oh, and I know. Let me just show this to the film real quick, because I do wanna say one thing. And real quick, give me 2 seconds. I know you're watching, motherfuckers, so watch this shit real quick. If you're not, while I'm showing the laptop to the video camera, it will take 3 seconds. 1. Before we dive into the real meat of everything, before I talk about this film, that probably didn't even show up the camera like I wanted to. I want to dedicate, and I know I did this last episode, but this is some real shit. I want to dedicate this segment to my friend Lewis, who passed.
Oh,
And
okay.
I used to play trombone with back in high school, you know? So I want to take like maybe like a moment of silence for my friend Lewis.
Okay.
So okay. And cause man, watching this shit was like when I remember I told you before I got here, I was like, this shit brought back memories to me, you know? And even in my fucking voice, shit is getting sentimental. But being like coming back to reality, the reason I bring it up is because I played in a band, an orchestra in high school, you know, and I played trombone with my friends Louis and Jorge, and Christian, who I don't know as much as both of them because I went to middle school with both Jorge and Louis, but it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And before we get a little more into that, I appreciate you taking that moment of silence. I know you would, of course, but yeah, man, that motherfucker was cool as shit. So I hope he's looking either down, up, sideways, whatever. I'll fuck with you, look. Yeah. So let's get into the grid of the movie.
Let's get into the grid of the movie.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I'll start off with saying that this movie, to me, the first time I saw it, it blew me out of the water.
Oh, man.
I thought I have some reviews I'll bring up later.
Oh, please do, because those are the funnest.
Right?
Throw it back to Star Wars. Yeah, man.
But to me, this movie just really threw me aback.
Yeah.
I think I saw this movie after I saw La La Land.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And I could see a lot of Damien Chazelle's work in the sort of his style of filmmaking be translated from these two films.
Got you.
And one of the most notable moments I could think of is that in La La Land, there are these quick whips that happen at the camera.
And I'm sure that video has been shared on Instagram a lot.
Where Damien Chazelle tapping the camera guy to like push the camera left and right. He uses those quick whips in Whiplash.
Of course, with the orchestra and stuff like that. Yeah. And I want to shout out to Daredevil real quick because I'm watching Daredevil right now. This is an AMC Our Movie Comic show. Bro, the scene where motherfucking Daredevil is fighting on the hallway staircase and he's going downstairs and the cameraman is following him. Oh my God. I was watching it with Beatrice and I would not shut the fuck up. I'd be like, do you see how great this is? The cameraman should have won 10 awards. And I was just going off about how much the cameraman should have got appreciation, which of course they do. So, Jesus.
One shots are always amazing.
Incredible. And you only get one chance until you got to do it again. You know what I'm trying to say? So you get multiple chances, but it's that one.
There's a lot of film magic that happens to it. I won't lie. I'm sure for those Daredevil scenes, they definitely cheated.
No doubt. No fucking doubt.
But
go on.
But anyways.
I like how you slipped that in there, bro. If you're listening, this motherfucker has been saying anyways. And I've been laughing every single time because I'm wearing freaking earphones that are connected to this mouse. so I hear it. But if you don't, this motherfucker is going mad. What's it? On me, man. So, but first of all, if we could throw it out there, I'm Mexican American, man. And what are you, Javi?
I'm Dominican Colombian.
I thought you were Asian. And that's who we are. Anyway, before we get into more of it, I got the way I wrote my notes for this movie is kind of like the Beatles, and the reason I'm referring to the Beatles a lot because that shit was awesome, and I feel like the more we go into our podcast, I think the more I'm learning how to do this shit better and better, right?
Okay.
And so I took notes as I saw the movie today for the first time, right?
All right.
So this movie is about music, and more so orchestral music. I absolutely love orchestral music, and I've always said this. First of all, one of the most original forms of music is Gregorian chant, which is basically how they wrote music back then, like back then, like literally singing in caves, like like Halo shit, like you know, like I won't say like the more Gregorian chant. They kind of created the format for how we write music today. So when you read a Gregorian chant written music, it's little dots on paper, kind of like sheet music. And the
Okay.
higher up the dots are, the higher the note is. And the lower the dots are, the lower the note is. And now we have
Okay.
G clef and bass clef. So that's how we read music today, and time measurement, all that stuff, tempo and all that stuff, right?
Not my tempo.
Exactly. Little fucking what's it called? Callback.
Inside joke.
little bit of both. And music has always been very important to me because the history of it is beautiful. But I always think that no matter what music you listen to today, whether it be rock, hip hop, jazz, reggae, salsa, cumbia, I mean, it'll go on, right? It all kind of comes together from classical music, you know, and the original instrument, which is the voice. Before there's instruments, I mean, there was always an instrument. The voice is an instrument,
Yeah.
technically speaking, you know. Javi sings, so he knows that shit. He's a great singer. But I wanted to say this before all my notes. It's an old joke. It's a very old joke. A man in New York City, he's walking around New York City, and he goes into a taxi cab, and he says, "Hey, how do you get to Carnegie Hall?" And the taxi driver looks back at him. He says, "Practice, practice, practice."
Wow.
For all you band geeks out there, I know you laughed, and for all people that didn't laugh, that's your fault. Carnegie Hall is one of the most prestigious places anyone can play music ever. And what he means is basically to get there, you gotta practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
And I think essentially what this movie is Terrence Fletcher, that's his name, right?
Uh-huh.
Saying, motherfucker, not only do you need to practice practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If that relates, because it does.
Definitely in Fletcher's perspective for sure.
And one thing I want to throw out there, which sucks ass for me, is that this is not a true story. Right? It's based off a lot of like stories of other people, but this story in itself isn't completely true. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just telling you. I don't know if you're but it's not. It's because the first thing I looked up, I was like, is this movie true? And it was like, unfortunately, this shit is not true. And I was like, no. But it's a lot of influence from other music, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I saw an interview where Damon Chazelle brought up of like for him the inspiration this movie came up from his own experience of going to band practice and how he had an instructor that was really awful that like to this day he still has nightmares about sometimes.
Yeah.
And that was the inspiration of this movie. And there's a great moment when Andrew is having, I was about to call him Miles.
It's hard not to like differentiate.
But when Andrew is having that dinner,
Andrew the drummer.
Yes, when he's having that dinner with his family, and that his one cousin or something points out, but isn't music like subjective or something? And in this world, it very much is not.
Only in this world. And
yeah. And that in this world, music is very much so to that tempo and to that beat and to that rhythm. And if you don't have it that way, it's wrong. And
to specify a little more, the scene is what's his name again? The
Andrew.
drummer. And so Andrew, the drummer within the orchestra that Fletcher is leading, right? He's trying to talk about his success in the band, right? He got to be the core drummer for the orchestra, right? And he's kind of being overlooked by, was it his brothers or cousins?
I think they're his cousins.
So his cousins are football players, right? And the family, the older generation of the family is saying like, "Oh, look at the football players; they're doing so good, they're thriving." And then Andrew is like, "But I'm finally like advancing in my music career," and they're like, "That's cool and all, but they're playing football." And then Andrew's like, "Yeah, but they're only playing third division, which is like a mediocre level of football in terms of first division, you know." And I kind of wanted to share a little bit of my personal experience with orchestra, like this little slight, because so in high school, this is the only time I get to talk about it really. I played football and I played trombone in high school. You know, so when I started playing in the orchestra, I mean, we both went to the same high school. You know, should we shout it out?
LIC high school.
LIC motherfucking high school, bitch. You know, so we both went there. It wasn't the best school in the world, but I had fun. How you had it? You had fun? So I applied to that school for the orchestra experience, right?
Okay.
And I just happened to play football and lacrosse. But when I got to LIC, I sat down, I got to my music class, and I was so excited, bro. I was like, let's fucking go. I'm gonna play some motherfucking orchestra music. I'm gonna be in the orchestra. My friend Lewis that I mentioned before, he played in the orchestra in our middle school, the one I went to with him. He played trombone, and he would say things like, we played Bohemian Rhapsody and we played Jaws and Star Wars in orchestra that he would play in, like a whole organized orchestra with I think the teacher was named Mr. Lehman, right? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Lewis? And me and him were like close friends for life. Like, he was a motherfucker I knew for like a long time, you know? He was a good friend, but he had closer friends than me. But we would play Mario Party at his house, like, and shit like that. So I know that's relevant to your viewers, but I do know for the motherfuckers that know me personally, and you know I'm talking about. Jorge, you've been there. Anyway, so when I got to LIC, we had a teacher named Mr. B, who was a big name. He was also bald, which is kind of funny. He looked like Terrence Fletcher. But he kind of also navigated himself like Terrence Fletcher. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that when I was in high school, the music teacher I had, he was more focused on his advanced band than the beginner band. So in that class of beginner band that I had hopes of learning music, we did it. He kind of just bragged about how good he was of a teacher. He was like, look what I could do with the piano. And he would show us. And then he would feel like, so play this. And we were like, what the fuck? You didn't teach us how to play anything, you know? And the reason I want to tell the story is because I have the year after, because this guy kind of gave up and just started showing us movies. The only thing I learned from this bitch is leitmotif. Do you know what a leitmotif is?
No.
So a leitmotif is basically when you watch Jaws, right? Because if you haven't watched Jaws, watch that shit. When you see that the shark comes into the scene, what happens?
Dun dun.
Dun 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 dun.
Dun dun.
Dun! When Darth Vader comes to the screen, what happens?
Oh.
Dun dun dun.
Okay.
Dun 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 dun. When Indiana Jones comes to the scene, what happens? I forget the music myself.
Dun 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 dun
Dun,
dun
dun, dun,
dun.
dun, dun, dun. You know, dun, 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 you know? So that's what a leitmotif is. When a character enters a scene and there's a music associated with the character, that's what a leitmotif is.
Okay.
That's all I learned from that motherfucker, which is a great, great thing to learn. And I literally just remembered it now because my mind is being retraced back so many things. It's like therapy. But he stopped being the teacher, you know? And I had a teacher who I will credit today. Her name is Miss Cruz. And she walks into the orchestra classroom. And we're all assigned instruments. The way that the previous teacher assigned me an instrument, he was like, me. He was like, stand up. I stood up. He's like, put your arms out. And I did. He was like, trombone. I was like, oh. Miss Cruz came to teach a class. And she said, honey, play a B flat. I looked at her and I was like, what? She was like, play a B flat. I was like, I never learned what that is. She was like, you poor baby. You know? To sum up an entire high school experience, not only did she teach this organized class how to play music, you know, she taught us how to cooperate as an orchestra, work as a team. We got to play in front of our school, you know, which wasn't the best performances, but we got better and better. She organized an after-school program to clean up the instruments that were there because they were gross, you know.
Okay.
I played trombones, and one of the scenes of Whiplash, you see the trombone players spit, and there's spit coming out the valves. That's what I used to do. I used to spit the spit out my valves on the floor and then lube up my slide so I could play trombone. I learned how to play La Bamba, dun, 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 you know. And I also practiced the Futurama theme song in the beginning. I learned my B flat scales, my G scales, my D scales, everything. And she also started a piano after school club afterwards. I mentioned that I played high school and football. Football in high school. Whoops. Ooh. I waved the alcohol bottle. One of the best moments I've ever had in my life is that I wasn't playing in a homecoming game. I was kind of just wearing the uniform to like do some stupid high school football shit. So I was wearing my football pads. But I got to play the Star Spangled Banner in my football pads.
Okay.
So that was one of the coolest moments ever in my life. I was wearing my football outfit.
You really are an American.
America. And one of the most beautiful things ever that I wish I got to experience, but I didn't. And she said she would always do this. After you graduated, she was able to take the orchestra that she was building up from like literally from my grade and they performed in City Field for the Mets.
Oh wow.
Yeah, LIC High School, Miss Cruz.
Nice.
So she revolutionized how a whole group of kids that were doing nothing in a classroom with a teacher that would neglect them to actually teaching them something with care, love, and way different from Terrence Fletcher. But I wanted to bring that up because at the same time of everything, I was with my friend Luis and Jorge and my friend Christian. We were all trombonists. We were all Mexican. And by one of our teachers there, I don't know if you know who he is. His name is Mr. Sid Rovovich. Mr.
Nah.
Sid. He taught the other orchestra. He called us the Brasters.
The Brasters.
Because the trombone is a brass instrument.
Yeah.
So that's why he calls us the Brasters. Maybe a little bit because we were Mexican, but that's a different story for a different day. I know it's a tangent. I know it's a different tangent. But watching this movie, and the reason I want to take a moment of silence and dedicate it is because this had a big impact on me because I knew what it is to be a part of an orchestra. Not that sophisticated, but just in the sense of what I take from it is that when you watch a movie and you cry, you don't cry because of the scene. You may cry because of the acting, but what makes you really cry is the violence.
Yeah.
When you're scared of a movie and you're scared of a scene, what are you scared of? Ding! Yeah. The instruments. And I think ultimately...
I'm sure you probably got some people right there.
Yeah. Oh, shit. And I'm gonna explain the scene later on, but I really wanted to share that shit because I'm gonna get some more points, and Jesus Christ, I want to really go on forever with this movie because it's really one of those things where I'm grateful we talk about entertainment. Well, sometimes I wish we could have our whole audience watch the entertainment before we talk about it. Because anyway, so the character Andrew, he gets chosen as core drummer.
Yeah.
For the very advanced class that is Terrence Fletcher's class of an orchestra.
Yeah.
And it's like boot camp. It's kind of like Hitler's version of orchestra.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say that like from the opening scene alone, it really just builds the tone for the movie. Mm-hmm. From the opening scene alone, you see Andrew just playing the drums and Fletcher comes in and he's like, "Why'd you stop playing?" And you're like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
Ooh. And Andrew starts playing again and he's like,
"Did I tell you to stop playing?"
Yeah.
And he's like, he keeps playing and he starts talking and he stops and he's like, "But did I tell you to stop playing?" You know, right? Or some shit like that.
Yeah. He's like, "Did I tell you to start playing?" Your reaction to me asking you, "Why did you stop playing?" was to act up as a wind-up monkey and to play again.
Yeah.
And it's so intense. The anxiety throughout this movie is so high up because Fletcher, like how you keep pointing out to, is like this sort of drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And he just really goes in. Yeah. He does not hold back whatsoever.
He's a very, very, very vulgar and fucking just crazy motherfucker. Like drill, like you said, drill sergeant of a orchestra conductor. But what he ultimately wants is to make the best orchestra he can make, but that doesn't involve him. That involves everybody else believing that they could do it within themselves. He just has
it's not even that he wants the best orchestra. Mm-hmm. He wants sort of the acknowledgement even to himself that he founded the next great. Yeah. He wants that soul recognition that
or more so pushed it, because I think that's where we get a little different minded, because I think he just wants to push these musicians to be the best version of themselves, which he says later on to the movie.
No, he does.
Yeah. So,
no, I agree.
Okay, nice. Cool.
No,
cool.
Yeah, I mean, he says that quite literally, where he's like, "I want to push people past their limits."
Exactly.
But he also says, he also says with that he doesn't care about orchestrating. Any asshole can wave his hand.
Can wave a hand in front of a band.
Yeah, is what he says. To him, what's more important is discovering the next great.
Hell yeah.
And I think it was so interesting and so amazing, the moments that come up in this movie of like, is Andrew going to become one of the greats or not?
Yeah. And at first they give you a little hint of like, oh, this is going to be a feel-good movie of him being an extraordinary student and he's so good and he gives him a chance. But then he easily gets replaced by his like old mediocre band member, which is and basically what I'm trying to say is that the guy from the intermediate band goes to the advanced band and he gets a chance to perform not Whiplash. Was it Whiplash?
They do play that song. They also play Caravan. Yes. is a big song that they play.
And the first song they're practicing is Whiplash, and the Andrew guy performs it beautifully. And so the Andrew guy gets so like hot-headed. He's like, oh, I'm nice. I'm hot shit. I'm reaching up to Fletcher, the conductor's expectations. And then Fletcher is like, you know what? I'm gonna bring in your old band member, and I'm gonna see how good he is, just to make sure that we get the best version of a drummer we can into the band. And then Connolly, right? That's his name.
Connolly, yeah.
Connolly, one of Andrew's former intermediate band members, plays the drums better than him at that moment, quote unquote. And allegedly, and this drives Andrew fucking
Up the
wild.
Wall. Oh
He's
my God.
like, he says, this guy plays drums better than me. Fuck that. I'm gonna go off. And he goes off and he practices by himself to the point where he's bleeding from his hands playing drums.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I get to the movie where I just end up thinking where to the point where I didn't like the scenes where he was dipping his bloody hands in ice.
Oh.
So I very much look at Andrew as a mediocre actor.
So Miles Teller?
Yes. Oh no. Oh, whoever is the actual actor playing the student.
Yeah, Miles Teller.
Oh, that's his name, Miles Teller?
Yes.
So my bad, I hit the mic. I didn't think he was that great of an actor. I thought everybody was a mediocre actor, but except the extras who were just being extras, right?
Okay.
But I'm not trying to say they were terrible actors. I mean, they were just being kind of like regular people, right? But Andrew, because he has so much screen time, I felt he was just the all-looking person doing his thing, you know? I felt Terrence Fletcher, played by
J.K. Simmons,
carried the whole movie, you know? And the reason I say that is because it's his essence and his vulgarity and his power that brings out what the movie's supposed to be, you know? And the reason I say I didn't like when he put his bloody hand in the ice bin, basically he drummed so hard his hands were bleeding. What I liked instead is that when he was playing Caravan, the second song they were practicing, and the conductor was like, Terrence Fletcher, he said, faster, drum faster. And when he was drumming, there was a front shot of him drumming, and he was going so fast. Then the camera circled around him, and then you could see the blood on the panel of the drum, and then on the cymbals. And I thought that was in better taste. When I saw him putting his hands in ice, I thought they were trying to be the Rocky of music. Like dun 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 dun, because he was practicing so hard. I was like, we get it. Like, that's not the only. When I play trombone, my lips are bigger because of trombone. When I left practice, my lips would tingle. They would go. If you played a brass instrument and you blew into a mouthpiece, you understand that your lips literally feel like electricity when you leave. They don't stop tingling till 2 hours later.
Yeah, like don't like jazz like musicians have like bigger cheeks for that reason.
Trumpet players in particular, like Louis Armstrong, when you see him play, you'll see his cheeks puff up much higher. But with trombone players and like French horn and all this stuff, they kind of make this, and I'll do it further from mic. That's how you play trombone. You play it by going with your lips.
Okay.
And that's why when you're playing into a mouthpiece, when you stop playing, your lips still quiver. But when you're playing trumpet, it's more like you gotta puff up your cheeks because it's such a small mouthpiece, you know?
Okay.
And then what I like that they shot a lot about the movie is the specifics of how to play an instrument. When clarinets were using their wooden reeds to insert into the clarinet, they were wetting them at first because they need to be soaking wet to be able to carry that wind through the clarinet and everything.
I mean, for you to point that out, I mean, Damien Chazelle, again, he sort of wrote this movie off of his own experience.
That's awesome.
You
could tell he had experience.
Yeah, like he is a avid fan of jazz music, and La La Land is also a clear example of that, because if anyone who's seen that movie is basically how white people save jazz.
100%. And jazz in America today is the least popular genre in America.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
I didn't know that.
Y'all motherfuckers are crazy. Sorry about that.
I didn't know that until you said it, but I believe it.
And I wanted to bring up one thing. Jesus Christ. There's a guy I saw earlier yesterday. His name is Philip Franklin Lee.
Okay.
He's a cook, so he's not a musician.
Okay.
He's responsible for a place called Pasta Bar in Austin, and I think in Los Angeles. He makes food. People like Leonardo DiCaprio have eaten in his restaurant. He's very famous. But he was talking about his experience on the William Montgomery Show, which is a show on YouTube, right? And he was saying that they asked him a question like, "What do you think about chefs like Chef Ramsay and stuff? Gordon Ramsay.
Oh.
Like, what are you, a fucking sandwich or some shit like that?" But and he said, nowadays you can't do that anymore. You can't be like that to other student chefs. Why do you think you can't do that no more to other student chefs?
Because it just would probably get socially accepted as wrong.
Well, not only that, it's illegal.
Ah.
It's actually illegal. And what he's saying is that when he grew up in the cooking industry, and a lot of people that I know that are in the cooking industry have grown up with chefs that are like tormenting them, and not only like verbally, but just crazy like. And I've read Anthony Bourdain's book, which is not the only chef in the world, but he talks about those situations too, and how amazing they are. And even if you watch a little bit of Ratatouille, which I know is a way different, I definitely recommend Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, which is one of my favorite book in the world.
Okay.
But even with Ratatouille, when you see the environment of a kitchen, there's real grit to it, because motherfuckers in the kitchen are really up all night. They say, what do you do on Valentine's Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all that stuff? You go to dinner, right? Who's working?
The people there
in the kitchen, right? So they don't have those days off. They work, And I think that was real crucial. And he said, now that those things are so sensitive to people, that he said it's a kind of a shame that the people coming up, they don't get to experience that no more, because what they're trying to do is make you the best version of you can be. What does that remind you of? Terrence Fletcher.
Yeah.
And my music teacher, and I'm not the best version I could be musically, like I just did what I did in high school, but I do think in the military and the music in the kitchen, that extra grit that you can apply to a student really does bring out the best in you. Did it not with this Andrew guy ultimately at the end?
I mean, I think what's really interesting about this movie,
we don't want to skip over, but continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about this movie as a whole is because I think it sort of brings up an argument, the argument of nature versus nurture.
For sure.
Because Fletcher's big argument to why he's such an awful person and why he's so hard as an instructor is because he thinks that saying the words "good job" are the most harmful
terrible
things you could ever say to someone.
Yes, sir.
Because it can prevent someone from becoming greater than what they are.
Yeah.
That is his belief. And so that is why he pushes everyone to the extent that he does.
Yeah. So hard.
And it really speaks to the nature versus nurture, because I think it does bring the question of that. Well, if you were going to be great, or if you are great, you would be anyways.
Yeah.
And so there's that nature versus nurture of like, is Andrew Neiman a great drummer because he's a great drummer by nature, or it's because of Fletcher pushing him the way he did by nurture? And I think what's really interesting about the movie is that it doesn't answer that question. It leaves it open-ended. Even with that final shot where it shows Fletcher, just his eyes.
Smiling.
Arguably he's smiling, but we don't know because we don't see it.
I see his cheeks elevated, but you're right. We don't know.
No, his cheeks are elevated, but I think that's done on purpose.
Yeah.
It's done very purposely where it leaves it open-ended of that. Is Fletcher smiling and is he proud of Andrew? Or is he just happy that he found his own sort of selfish gain of finally, I found my bird? Because that's something he speaks of, Larry Bird, a lot in the movie, that he wants to find his own version of that. And so it really raises that question of that, is Fletcher doing this for himself, or is he doing it for the sake of music?
Yeah.
And it just coincides with that nature versus nurture, I think. There's even that great moment at the end with Andrew's dad as he's peeking through.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of gone down to shock.
And what he's peeking through, what Andrew's dad is looking at is basically Terrence Fletcher, to kind of trace back a little. Before one of their final practices, what did Terrence Fletcher play for the band? He played a tape of one of his old students called Sean Casey. So before Andrew got into this orchestra, I mean, Terrence Fletcher has been teaching a bunch of other students, right?
Yeah.
And one in particular was called Sean Casey. And apparently the Sean Casey student died that morning, right? And he said, hey, he died in a car accident this morning, and he played his tape. and he was in third chair in the Lincoln Center Orchestra, and he made it to first chair. I was first chair in my high school orchestra.
Oh, okay.
He said that his old student Sean Casey had died in a car accident, and that he had a tremendous profile of being one of the best trumpet players, or one of the most, what's the word? Like he had so much fire in him. Terrence Fletcher saw that this trumpet player had so much fire in him that he brought him to his band, pushed him. He graduated, became third chair in the orchestra, then became first chair, and then died in a car accident. Later on, Andrew, his current student, current drummer, he wanted the part so bad to a point he was on his way to a performance, so focused and driven to not be replaced by his counterpart, that he was driving his car speeding and got hit by a truck. Now, one thing I want to mention about that scene is that I was biting my nails right before he bit the truck. Like, I was literally biting my nails, and I was like, is that because of the music, or because I was like, I want him to get there to not miss his chance to be part of this band? Because Terrence Fletcher said, if you don't make it on time, you're cut from the band, you're done, you know? And so later on, this guy gets hit by a car, and he still shows up, bloody in the face, bloody in the hand, and tries to play his part in the band. And Terrence Fletcher allows him to play, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know, that he sees his drummer bloodied, and he's like, well, if he's going to play, he's going to play, you know? And that's when I think, how far has he taken it, you know? After that, a lawyer comes up to Andrew and says, has this guy emotionally taken a toll on you? Because one of his old students has died from suicide. His old student was Sean Casey, you know?
Yeah.
When I was watching that movie, hand to whatever you believe in, I knew that he was lying about Sean Casey dying in a car accident.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because I think about Japanese students committing suicide in the suicide forest in Japan. How they're so pressured to be academically inclined that when they don't succeed to the expectations of their, you know, parents and stuff, they commit suicide in that forest. And that just gave me like fucking flashbacks that I don't have of that. And I'm not just saying that to be like, yeah, I knew it. But a lot of the moves he made, when he brought in the Okani guy, I knew that was to push Andrew.
Oh, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And
a big point too is that I'm sure Fletcher stole the folder or hid the folder.
Something like that. And we don't know, but it could be very much the truth. And when he brought him up on stage after getting fired, when Fletcher got fired from the school because Andrew eventually said, you know what, he did cause me emotional damage, all because the lawyer told him to say that. He was like, just tell me what to say, you know?
Yeah.
He eventually Andrew's working in a sandwich shop, and he finds Fletcher in a jazz club, you know? And he says he goes to go see Fletcher, who was fired from the school and now performing in a club. And Fletcher sees Andrew and he says, hey, come perform with me with some big time New York musicians. And he invites Andrew, and he's getting hype again. He's like, I want to play some drums. And right before the show starts, Fletcher goes up to Andrew and says, I know that it was you that ratted me out. And he doesn't give him the right music to play and embarrasses him in front of everybody.
Doesn't your heart just kind of drop when that happens?
I knew that shit too, bro.
Like,
I knew that he was gonna do that shit to him, man.
Regardless of that.
But you're right.
Like,
you're right. Yeah.
Because like I expected it too.
Yeah.
Even when Andrew lied to him of like, oh, you got fired.
Yeah. What a piece of shit, you know? Because Andrew acted like he didn't snitch on Fletcher.
Yeah, and you feel it. You're like, no, like you can just feel that the lies are there, and you know that the truth is right there.
It's so blatant.
And so when Fletcher says to him, he's like, you think I'm a fucking idiot?
Yeah, man.
You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It hits you and you're like, fuck.
And that's why I didn't expect when motherfucker and Andrew goes off on the drums and starts literally conducting the orchestra himself. He starts to lead his orchestra with this drumming in the final part of the movie. He starts drumming and Fletcher's like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, I'm going to cue you guys. And, and Fletcher says, not Fletcher, Andrew says, it's my time. I'm going to be fucking... And I think ultimately what this movie is both of them lost, you know?
Okay, that's a really interesting take.
Right?
Like they both lost.
They both lost and are lost, you know? But both are so engulfed with music, you know?
Yeah.
And competitiveness, and they both want to be the best. And I guess to be the best, you got to be crazy. One of the key things that they said at the dinner, when Andrew was at the dinner with his parents, he says, do you just want to be a 34-year-old heroin addict dying on the corner of a street like all musicians? And that reminds me of Jimi Hendrix, who literally died outside of a club overdosing. And Mac Miller even, who died recently, who I really much loved. And I mean, what a fucking movie. you know?
It really points or pinpoints that question of like, how worth it is success? How worth it? How much are you willing to put in to be successful?
Yeah.
And even with the breakup scene, the fact that Andrew is just kind of like...
He sacrificed his girlfriend to make more time for his music.
And he says it to her straight up.
Like, exactly.
He says that directly to her. He's like, I need to be the best, and you being in my life will prevent that.
Yeah. And I thought that was actually a pretty good move. Because I think...
Damn!
Pew, pew.
I thought that was so fucked up. I was like, damn!
I don't think it was. I think distractions are very real, and I just think that he was smart to do that. He was very mature to do that. I don't think that was a wrong... It seemed wrong, but I think the wronger part was to go so far into risking his mental health, his life, his health. I mean,
he still called her, though.
He called her because he missed his chance back then when he was doing it. And so then he was like, hey, I'm going to get this one last chance of redemption. And it's like, why are you calling her, though? Because now you want to seem like a big shot that you thought you were going to be? You know? It's like, if he knew he was going to be this big shot forever... He would have... I mean, I guess I'm just being conflicted in my own head, right? But why didn't he call her while he was working at a sandwich shop?
Because he definitely wasn't at his best. Definitely, the way that I see it is that he called her because he was finally feeling a little bit better about himself. And I think he finally came to a realization for himself where he was like, I can do music and still have my own life.
But why did he think he could do music?
Because Fletcher definitely sort of invited him to join the orchestra, and that gave him that sliver of hope of like, oh, I can still do music, but that doesn't mean I had to give up my life.
But didn't Fletcher invite him to do music before?
I mean, technically with the class and stuff, but...
I mean, officially with the class, because to get into that class, everybody had to be the best, to be chosen by him.
But he's not in the school anymore. And I think that's the big difference, because even with the other drummer, Tanner, I believe his name, he switched to pre-med or something like that.
Yeah, they give up.
And so, and I think that's what brings up the nature versus nurture question again, of that, was Andrew always destined to be one of the greats?
Or was he desperate for Fletcher's approval?
Exactly.
Yeah, man. And I think ultimately, he was desperate for his approval. I don't think he cared about being the greatest. I think in order for him to be the greatest, he had to get past Fletcher's approval, which Fletcher probably would never give him, because nobody can be the greatest in terms of Fletcher's opinion, because Fletcher is the greatest.
That's pretty good.
I think that's what it is. I think I correct the quote. Not to be like that, but I think, and that just came to my mind, I think it's a sad cycle that they both are within, because
I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but just kind of like how we feed off each other and things like that, whatever the case is. Like both of these characters, Andrew and Fletcher, feed off of each other. Yeah. Andrew, who always wants to be the best, and Fletcher, who's looking for the best.
Holy shit.
They just feed off of each other.
That's fucking insane. That sounds biblical even. Right? Like, that sounds biblical to the point where it's like their destiny is cursed to be that they'll never reach their potential, because the other is always outdoing them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I did write one thing that, last time I said that, well, I'll say whatever I say. What I wrote about the end of the movie, I said, very interesting segue into what music is showing. Speaking of, but fuck that. Big time means big time. Big work, big emotions, no pussies within. Those are the audience. And I think that's what it is ultimately. That when you see a motherfucker like Jimi Hendrix on stage, putting in work in his guitar, changing the national anthem as we know it, when you see the Beatles put out Sgt. Pepper and be like, hey, I'm changing shit. When you see Jay-Z come out of nowhere and just kill the whole rapping game, when you see anybody make music, Kurt Cobain come out and just, destroy with his lyrical amazingness and guitar playing. And I mean, there's so much artists that I can mention,
Yeah.
And even like Red Hot Chili Peppers, who weren't supposed to be as big as they were, that I'm about to start reading about them. What I'm trying to say is that The greatest are the greatest because they go through the greatest amount of things, you know? And it may not be all artists, but I believe that there's a reason why a lot of artists do heroin, you know? I believe that's why a lot of artists are alcoholics and drug users. And
There's a lot that comes with that sort of success.
shit is heavy.
And what's a really interesting point in the movie in itself is that this idea of how Larry Bird became Bird.
Yeah.
And that he became Bird because this other guy threw a symbol at his head.
Is it Buddy Richard or is it Larry Bird? Because Larry Bird's a basketball player.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God.
I've been trying to look it up whether you've been saying this or that, but I'm pretty sure it's Buddy Richard.
Well, Buddy Rich
is the guy Andrew was listening to in the beginning.
Buddy
right?
Rich is definitely one of the artists that
Buddy
he listens
Rich,
to.
I'm sorry, yeah.
But Bird, I know, is one of an artist. I could just be getting the Larry.
The Larry,
part wrong.
I think the Larry you're confusing with the basketball player, which my bad, I didn't say it. I was like, is it or is it not?
But Bird, as an artist,
Yes.
had a symbol thrown in his head, and that's how he became Bird.
And in the scene where Terrence Fletcher throws a chair at Andrew's head
is very metaphorical of that.
So amazing.
And so definitely, which just speaks to the fact that Fletcher is just looking for his next bird. He doesn't care how he gets it. He just wants to discover the next great.
He says, I was there to push people beyond what's expected of them, which you said. He said it was absolutely necessary. And that's how you get the next Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, bro. Jesus Christ, this movie was so fucking crazy.
It's intense. It's a lot of anxiety, and it really brings up the question of that. How far is too far as an instructor, especially in something as interesting as the arts?
Yeah, and for me, I just think that the best are crazy, and the craziest can withstand the toughest things. And I think, and that's just my opinion because I don't think it's correct, but I think the best will look at Fletcher's aggressiveness and they'll take it like, that ain't shit to me because I want to be the best.
Yeah.
And you got to be crazy to want that. And that's why I didn't think Fletcher was going too far at all. I think I think more people should be like Fletcher. And I think that because more people aren't being like Fletcher, we're losing the potential of what society comes out to, in my opinion, in terms of music, cooking, everything. And I know that may lead to like really bad things for people, but if that ain't what you want to be, give up, because the best rely on you to give up so they can be the best, you know.
I don't know if I have an outright opinion of like what I think is the best thing, to be perfectly honest. I just like looking at the conversation more than anything.
That's dope too. Yeah.
Of like, is this right or is this wrong?
Yeah.
Because again, a whole student was brought to death.
Yeah. He committed suicide. That's worse than death. That's Terrence Fletcher's, a part of Terrence Fletcher's fault. Is his conscience.
Yeah. And so I just think that's a really interesting topic of like, again, how far is too far?
True. But would you say that him going into that class and staying in that class, was that his fault to stay there? Could he have just walked away?
It's true. Yeah. That's another thing too.
Because in one of the scenes, Fletcher slaps Andrew 3 times in the face.
I have a fun fact about that. Originally,
he actually slapped him?
He actually slapped him because they did a couple takes where they did mimic slaps, but then
didn't come out well.
But both Miles and J.K. Simmons agreed to do a take where they did actual slaps, and that's a take that stays in the movie.
I think that's important, and I think I'm just crazy because if I film the movie, I think real slaps are better than non-real slaps. I know that's like controversial today, but hey, man, you want to be the best, you gotta do the best, you know, and the best are crazy, you know. So I just think that if you're not game, get out. You know, if what is it? If too hot for the kitchen, get out the kitchen.
If too many cooks in the kitchen,
too
hot for the kitchen.
So, what is the fucking saying? God damn. I gotta Google that before I fucking stop. Fuck. Wait, hold on, just chat, Javi. Let me just say.
Gets too hot in the kitchen with too many cooks or something like that.
Sauteed peppers. Oh, wait. If you can't stay in the heat, get out the kitchen. there we go.
We got there.
Jesus Christ. First of all, I just want to say I'm extremely grateful that you recommended that movie, man, because I mean, literally, like I'm nowhere near as great as talented as these fictional characters and whatever they're based off, Buddy Rich and all these people. I'm not. But I am musically inclined, and when I was watching that movie, man, I I just remembered, and the main thing that comes to me that I actually told Beatrice before I saw the movie, I was like, you know, man, when you play in an orchestra, it's selfless because nobody cares about one single person in the orchestra. You know, you watch a band or something, like it's a sound coming together, but you look at the best guitarist, the singer, but orchestra is comprised of like 20 plus people, man.
Yeah.
And percussions are often looked at as, you know, anybody could do percussions, you know, like, you know, triangle, xylophone, it's whatever. It's just tapping shit. But drums are really complicated, and I've grown to appreciate drumming because of this movie. And I've always looked at it as that when you play in an orchestra, it don't matter one single person. It's about the whole coming together of everything. And I realized that, you know, playing in music when I left, nobody cared. You know, nobody cared. But when you're within there, you're making music to the world as a collective, you know? And when you watch a movie like Jaws, you don't care about the orchestra members. You don't care about John Williams.
No.
You just care about dun 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 dun. You know, like that's only if you care to look into whose name is who conducted that, created that. You feel me? So goddamn. Goddamn.
Well, to end all this, I got some reviews for you for
Please
the movie.
give me them.
Pull these out of Letterboxd. They're pretty good.
Okay.
So, first one I got from you is from featuring Dante from the DMC series.
Dante.
That's their username.
I guess we gotta look up the DMC series.
And they say, I had a dream that J.K. Simmons yelled at me and I woke up crying. 5 stars.
Honestly, same. Okay. Yeah, that motherfucker was harsh, man. I mean, can we just say this because we started the episode with this? I mean, he did use the FAGGOT word a lot, and if you can spell, you know what I'm talking about. And I think that comes down to the core of our initial conversation. I was the argument. So sorry. Initial conversation.
Debate.
Sophisticated argument. And it comes down to basically, I mean, this movie has that word a lot, and that word is very controversial. You know, not as controversial as the N word, I would say, for sure. But ultimately, like, are we gonna get rid of this movie because of it? I don't think so.
No.
Nah, right? And I think at the core of everything, when you see what entertainment stems from and what people say, I mean, Quentin Tarantino, did he not use the N-word in his movies?
Oh, all the time.
All the time, you know? And I just want to point that out because I think it's important. I mean, are we going to get rid of every Quentin Tarantino movie? Because I know you bitches love Pulp Fiction. You know, I know you do. And so when we look at this beautiful movie that is Whiplash, he uses, you know, that F word or whatever you guys want to say. Because I know Spotify's censoring shit nowadays. And I think it's important to really conserve, you know, media entertainment, because if it uses the words, just like books written by African Americans, you know, using the word, the N word and stuff like that, I think it's important to say that, hey, there's a reason they're using it, because it's representing either a fictitious story or a real story, because these words are real. And just like getting rid of statues, you're deleting histories, deleting history, you know? Yeah. You know, if you don't have any more statues of Confederates or like Nazis, you know, not to praise them, but in their museums, guess what? It might just happen again, and new statues will be built of them when they take over. You know, I know that's an absurd thing to say, but sometimes those statues are there to teach history, so it won't happen again.
Fair enough.
That's just a big thing I want to say. You know, so
fair enough.
I mean, I sneaked that in there, but I did, motherfucker. so that was a good fucking review by that motherfucker, though, because I don't ever want to meet. You know what? If I met Terrence Fletcher, I wouldn't be scared of him.
Really?
I'm no bitch. Like
I would love to see you make him cry.
I've never been that person where it comes to, like, I'm not saying like I'm the toughest man alive, but like when I'm given an objective, you know, like, and if you're the person teaching me the objective, I'm going to take it as like, well, you're just trying to make me better, you know? Slap me on be tight, you know, but get sticks and stones, man. Like, you know, if you're screaming at me.
They throw a chair at you, how you going to feel?
I don't give a fuck. You're not hitting me with the chair.
Come on.
Nah, man, come on. I swear.
He didn't get hit with the chair because he had them Spider-Man reflexes.
And I would have had them shits too, man.
No, you wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't.
I would have been like... What I'm saying is that I love push for discipline. And I think discipline is in rare form these days. I think rarely do people today have discipline because they can go on social media and be like, I hate this motherfucker because he said he and she, like it's just, and it's more like, hey, this world is changing. Let's be patient. Let's understand everybody while we try to, normalize what you think is correct, but by understanding that other people may not understand that language. You ever heard the joke about racist grandpas, racist grandmas? No, well, people that grew up in the 50s, 40s. I'm not saying, oh, that's perfectly fine because they were younger in that day and age, right? But it's very much true. You know what I mean? That people grew up in these generations of terriblism. And I know that sounds more like, oh, tolerate racism. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying more like, let's be more understanding of people that grew up in a generation of terribleness, people who witness segregation and racism hand to hand, or like committed it and are trying to fix the error of their ways. All right, I'm gonna get a little preachy because I know I'm sounding pretty like, what did Frankie just say? Michael Vick is a quarterback for the Eagles, right?
Okay.
He went to jail because he was fighting dogs.
Fighting dogs?
Yeah, you ever heard about that?
No.
Okay, so bear with me, crowd, because I know you're like, yo, Frankie's a piece of shit, And I heard this very good quote. I'm not trying to say forgive people who are older in the generation because they say these things, and just because they're older, they're allowed to say these things. No. What is jail in America most known for today? They're known for not rehabilitating prisoners, right? You know what they're known for? Not rehabilitating them and teaching them the only way how to get back into jail. And that's the biggest flaws in the U.S. prison system today. That when people go to jail in America, all they learn is how to get back into jail. We don't teach them how to get better in society. We don't teach them this or that. And people are false in prison all the time. Rikers Island today in New York City, you'll be if you were selling an ounce of weed before it was legalized, illegally, you'd be put in the same room as somebody who stabbed somebody.
Yeah.
That's bullshit, right? Michael Vick was sent to prison for fighting dogs. He served his time and he got out of jail. But he's still looked at as a criminal and a terrible person. May he be a terrible person? Yeah. But what is prison supposed to be? You serve your time for the crime you committed, and then after that, you're released to society because you served enough time that justice has said that's the most amount of time you serve for the crime you committed, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's still being looked at as a vicious animal, which he, rightfully can be looked at as yes or no, But often we see prisoners who get released from jail and we want them to be hired into jobs, don't we? We want them to have regular lives, don't we? But a lot of jobs prohibit former prisoners from being hired. Why?
Because they were former prisoners.
But that's not how prison is supposed to work, right? You get what I'm trying to say?
No, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So we're supposed to rehabilitate people in society to make them into normalize them into normal society, quote unquote, And that's what I mean. It's just hard to say what I'm trying to say because it sounds terrible, right? But if you see some motherfucker being terrible, your answer shouldn't be like, condemn them to hell forever and never allow them to society again, for saying the things they did or doing the things they did. But if they need to serve a life in prison, they will. But if they committed a crime that could be redemption, like in Daredevil, like for real, in Daredevil, there's a scene where there's a former mobster who the Punisher wants to kill and Daredevil wants to save, I didn't realize what they were trying to do in that scene. But I figured what Daredevil wanted to save him is, for one, so he could be redeemed and face his time in jail. But I didn't realize that after the Punisher killed him, that if the Daredevil had brought him to justice, he could have brought down a bunch of other criminals with him, preventing a whole bunch of other crime. But the Punisher caved into anger and killed them altogether, hence forwarding more crime in the future because of his death. So who was wrong?
It's definitely a tricky question.
Yeah, man. So again, like, I know people hearing this conversation are like, this motherfucker's crazy. But I'm really on the side of things where it's just complicated.
Yeah.
It's a touchy episode. Sorry, I know you're going into reviews. I'm so sorry. I got into a whole different tangent.
We got into a whole B hole right there.
A whole B+ hole. Jesus Christ. Goddamn, bro.
I don't even know how he got into that beehole. I'm not even gonna lie to
You
you.
know how? Anyway, next review, please.
I got you at the next review. It's by Wayato. They say, this is definitely my fucking tempo. Holy shit. 5 stars.
At my tempo. Okay, 5, 6, 7, 8. Stop. Oh man.
That whole scene when he's trying to figure out between the 3 drummers which one of them is gonna get the role.
Oh, it was crazy.
Such an intense scene.
Bro, he had all 3 drummers practice the same thing over and over and over again for hours. And then after the hours of them trying, when they finally got it, when Andrew finally got it, he invited the rest of the orchestra to be like, all right,
he's like, all right, now let's start.
Oh my God. At like 2 a.m. or some shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. You got more reviews for me?
I do. I got a more serious review for you. It's a longer one.
Okay.
It's by Silent Dawn.
Silent Dawn.
They say
DAWN or DON?
DAWN.
Nice, because Dawn would be like, hey man. I don't know what the fucking impression I was trying to make right there.
So bear with me, it's a bit of a longer one.
I got you, bro.
But this guy says, not my tempo. A rapid, unforgettable, and absolutely stupefying work of romanticism, invigoration, and exquisite character development.
Jeez.
Whiplash is a prodigious study of the quest of greatness, anchored by 2 marvelous and dueling performances by Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons. The film starts by taking your breath away, holding it just out of arm's reach until the credits roll. The piercing flow of the editing, the knockout quality of the dialogue, the tinged and textural flavor of the cinematography, the fucking direction. God damn, this was good. I really can't overpraise Whiplash enough. It's triumphant of vitalization both visually and dynamically. He goes on.
Oh shit.
Let's start with Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons, both of which gave some of the best performances of 2014.
Oh yeah.
I've been a champion of Teller for a while now, and I'm happy to see he's grown in even more regards to his acting. He unleashes here, bringing both physicality and likability that is essential to connecting with the story as a whole. J.K. Simmons, however, is on some different plane of existence or something, because his work is some of the best I've seen, period. The rage, the fascinating quirks, the endless depths and angles that Fletcher showcases is just remarkable. And here I thought he was mean to Peter Parker in Spider-Man 2. If Peter Parker was in the film, he'd probably die from crying too hard. There's something about simple stories that connect in regards to character and theme rather than twisty plot that works so much better because of it's executed well. The tapestry of Whiplash is very simple, but that's what gives the film its striking character development and its frenetic energy. Damien Chazelle's story is given room to breathe, flow, and evolve without feeling cheaped or tacked on. The feeling you get when everything in a film is going exactly how you want it to is something really special, and that's how I felt about Whiplash. However, the simple story would be nothing without Damien Chazelle's direction. It is quite simply bewildering in every possible way. It's got this trance-like quality to it where you're just forced to pay attention and feel the film. I know that may sound silly, but with every single aspect working so fucking well, you're just kind of required to scoot a little back further in your theater seat as the images and sounds are so vibrant and alive. The way the camera moves, the way it follows characters, and the way close-ups are used all culminate in a work that already feels timeless. Sharon Meyer's cinematography is wonderful, highlighting flashes of colors and making a musical stage come alive in both its hypnotic qualities and fascinating intimidation. The lights, the darkened faces in the audience. I felt like I was there with Andrew, and Meyer's work really exemplifies that. Colors such as yellow and brown play a significant role, strikingly pushing the audience deeper into the story by providing a spellbinding look to the material. Tom Cross's Oscar-nominated editing is potent and fast beyond words. The cuts are plentiful, but always in time with the credible musical score by Justin Hurwitz. It adds to a visual sense of music, always flowing with the drumming or the many moments of studio band nirvana. The cinematic quality that results from all these elements is so good. I was basically thinking the whole time, this is why I love movies. An immaculate amalgamation of flawless technical flourishes, faultless performances, and a story that is as emotional resonant as it is gleefully deranged and seductive. Whiplash casts a spell on me that is yet to wear off, and I'm happy for that. Whiplash, I think I love you.
Wow. Chill Shakespeare reviews. that was very beautifully written, and as in my notes right here, I when I finished the movie, which I will talk about the review right now, but I wrote the best thing about the movie is the lighting and of course the sound.
Nice.
And without the lighting of that film, Amazon does this great thing when you watch it. It says, "Do you want to watch it?" And the filmmaker's intentions of lighting. I was like, okay.
The fuck?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Bro, I was like, what the fuck? I guess I also got the 4K Ultra version of it, which is like $4, so a pretty good price.
Okay.
And then before you start it says, "Do you want to watch this movie in the original intention of the filmmaker's, point of view?" And it said, what's it called? Parentheses. It was like, "It may be a little darker than you want." I was like, yeah, hell yeah. But I really thought that there's a certain moment when the Clarence Tetcher, right?
Terrence Fletcher.
Alcohol. When he raises his hand to start the composition, his hand is glowing with light. And it's like, kind of the hand of God saying, "You don't play until I say, you don't stop until I do," which is kind of like life,
Yeah.
And I mean, well said. What was his name again? The reviewer?
That reviewer was Silent Dawn, and they gave the movie 5 stars.
Killed that shit. I couldn't have said it better myself. We might as well have him on the podcast. Or
The last review I got for you.
Get me, bro.
Get ready for this one.
But much. Gonna be silly.
Kanye.
I'm gonna watch this motherfucker's documentary series tonight.
That's what I thought. That's why I thought this was so funny. By Kanye. And they say Devil Wears Prada for boys.
Nice.
4 stars. And that's it.
Shout out to Kanye West. Well, let me just say this, man. What the fuck kind of episode is this, bro? We just might end up on that little controversial list with Joe Rogan.
We'll see.
I don't give a fuck. But honestly speaking, man, this was a very, very interesting episode. And when I sober up and listen to it, I'll still be proud I said what I said. And I'm still proud of what you said. And I'm glad you read your shit. And I think you brought up an amazing film to talk about today, an amazing everything to talk about today. And shout out to Wooster Street and all that stuff, man. And what a fucking episode.
What an episode.
Holy
what
shit.
A wacky episode.
Jesus Christ.
I keep saying it, but goddamn.
Nah, man, it's fucking wacky. Wacky with 3 C's, 1 K, 2 Y's, and no
3
W's.
Ks.
3 K. Chill. Chill. Whoa.
We are racist.
I'm gonna sound cut that shit out. That's all hobby, man. Now we in this together, bro. Fuck it. Jesus Christ. JK.
With 3 kids.
3 kids. Jesus Christ. We're the coolest kids on the club. Anyway. Goddamn. KS and KY. So what was this, Javi?
Yeah,
what did we do today, man? What did we do on February 10th, 2022?
We talked about what's going on in the earth.
In our minds.
And this is why it mattered.
This is Earth, Mind, and Matter.
I hope you guys enjoyed the show.
Welcome to our brains.
Welcome to our brains. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure to rate the podcast.
Please do. If you stuck around this long.
Share it to your friends.
Give it to your grandma.
Give it to your grandma, your grandpa.
Your ex.
Put them on the episodes.
Facts.
They'll probably just leave it playing, and that's all we need.
Facts, man. And DM us your thoughts. We love to hear what you have to say after this episode.
Yeah. And again, we'll have all the supplementary stuff for this episode when it's up.
Yeah.
And I hope you guys get home safe. Yeah. Stay safe. Love y'all.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. My tip for the world: don't take shit too serious. Good night. Good morning.
Good night.